Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And I am so excited today because we are continuing our month of LinkedIn specific programs. We've been doing this now for several years, and I absolutely love it because I learn something new every time. And so I'm really looking forward to speaking with today's guest. So welcome Nancy Sheed to our program today. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Deb. I'm very excited to be here. I'm very excited to see you. And I am always happy to talk about LinkedIn.
Perfect. I love it. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we will dive into this. So Nancy Sheed is an online marketing strategist and real-life people connector with more than 20 years working in communications, media, and publishing industries. Her clients include authors, experts, and thought leaders seeking to authentically integrate digital media into their marketing and personal brand building strategy. Nancy helps her clients build platforms that launch bestsellers and speaking careers. So again, Nancy, welcome.
Thanks, Deb. So excited to be here. And
Great.
this is online connecting in its own kind of way.
Yep.
Even though we're being digital, I consider this online people.
It is. You know, we've got our virtual glasses of water and, cups of coffee. And if we're later in the day, we might have a virtual glass of wine. But this is just the way that we're going to be doing business proceeding going forward. It's interesting because some of us have been doing it for years. Others are just now catching on. But yeah, online meeting is just the way that we're going to be doing things from now on. One of the things that I always love to talk about with my guests is where they got to where they are today. And so you've had a little bit of a circuitous route. So tell us about, your career and how you discovered that this is your passion in life.
Great question. I think we go back to the very, very beginning. It was not unusual. I was interested. I just remember even in high school being able to read Business Week my dad's Business Week magazine, but in the same space, I had the big fat Vogue, right? So the interest in the media and that was always there. I got into college and liked the marketing classes and liked the art history classes, but started also saying, well, wait, how much do these jobs pay?
Right.
And
yeah. Can I make a living doing that?
I know I want to make a living. I ended up knowing that I wanted to go to New York. So I actually went the accounting route and because I just thought, okay, it would be a great foundation for business.
Right. No matter what.
No matter what, it gets you there. So I actually graduated from college with an accounting degree and went in the footsteps of those, at that point, I think Big Six accounting, but very quickly realized that my little marketing heart and extroverted heart was needed to be with people and needed to be back in the world of promoting and promotions and things like that. So I was really lucky to make a jump over, coincidentally, to a personal finance magazine, and then to Business Week, which I had been reading in high school, with my dad. So, but doing PR for these publications. So my financial background served me that I knew the content. However, I got to be back in the kind of promotion and promoting the magazine and breaking stories and those sort of things. And I think that, though it seems slightly different, was the natural evolution then into getting into what I do now. It was always about promoting the content, promoting the news breaking stories, promoting, let's say in those days, the writer, but now it's evolved into being an author. And why do I want to do that? Because I think that typically these either messages or news stories, findings, research, or whatever are really important for the world to know. So I was fortunate enough to kind of be around as the social media was taking off, and got my first client in 2010 when I kind of had gone out on my own, and she said, I need help with this Twitter thing. And I said, never been on Twitter.
Twitter?
We'll figure it out. She was launching her first book. That at that point, the whole, were blogs media to be pitched was still an idea, or are they this B-level kind of, media? She wasn't sure, but we wanted to explore it. And she had not yet developed an email list strategy. Again, 2010, that wasn't necessarily a really important part of marketing strategy. So I just was really lucky to kind of be at the ground floor with a prolific, client. Shout out Laura Vanderkam. She writes about time management. She's, now 6 books later, but really lucky to get to kind of launch those pieces that, I think you and I would agree important for anybody, like your website, your email marketing, and the social media part. So that was now, 11 years ago. And here we are. Now every platform requires its own expert, but there's still big picture ideas and strategies that, are important for helping people either set the foundation and grow, or pivot when, maybe they're either launching their new business or going from corporate to this, or launching a new book.
Right. And I love that, because so many people, and I mean, these are marketing tools, but you do have to use them differently. Because, a newspaper, a magazine, for example, when we pick it up, we're looking for certain information, and so that's definitely the pull type of thing. But, social media and even having a website, I mean, that's, people are, again, they're deliberately going to it, but they're kind of looking for things in a different way. And especially if you're trying to promote your business, when we have a magazine, when we have a newspaper, you expect to see ads, and you see them and you flip through them. And if you're not looking for a couch, you're probably not going to look at the furniture ad, you're going past it. But social media, it's tricky, because even though there's advertising, and we know it's there, and we bitch and we whine about it all the time, except when we want something, and then it's great because it's gonna, you post once and then you see all this stuff and you don't have to research anymore. But it's advertising is much less intrusive and definitely less popular. So we have to build those relationships with people. They want the messages from us and not from the business.
100%. And I think that is the reason I quickly learned that I liked working with writers and authors and journalists, because the product is information. The product is, okay, it might be a book, but they typically are prolific in their writing and their content. So it's not, to your point, like, so to me, organic, and by organic, versus, as you were just talking about, the paid, they typically have so much content that we can use for organic content to then create those relationships, and build that trust and build that community. It doesn't mean that advertising doesn't become part of it, but for me, that is what is so wonderful about working with thought leaders and writers and journalists, because they've got the content there. They sometimes get bogged down in the weeds of their stuff. So I like to work with them to sort of like, bring them out, or help them think about how to promote it, or how to get it out, or how to break it down, or how to simplify it, or, sometimes how even to repackage it. But I think when I hear you say advertising, that's not our first line of defense. When we're getting this foundation set up, because there's so much amazing content there to work with to begin with, that we're really blessed, versus, way back when I'm like, of course I can help people sell their products. Of course I can build websites for people and, sell their widgets. And that's a whole different story. It really is people, content, and ideas and services is a very different story than buy these sunglasses, buy this book, come in and buy this, piece of merchandise. And to your point, that's how we use those platforms differently. My sister, who's a bookstore owner, she's killing it on Instagram, right?
Because she's showing the books.
Things, right? It's completely different. So, but yeah, and as you said, like, not only do you not almost need to be an expert in every single platform, I will say to people, when we're talking about ads, we're going to go find, my 1 or 2 ad experts I like to work
Right.
with. That's a whole nother kettle of
Mm-hmm.
fish,
Mm-hmm.
a whole different science in and
Right.
of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the cool thing is social media really does allow us to connect with the people. Authors is a fabulous example of that. We've got the books, we buy the books, fiction, nonfiction. We think they're great. But then when we can actually connect with the author
100%.
online, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Instagram, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's whatever those platforms are,
Clubhouse,
they and it's funny, you and I met on Clubhouse, right?
right?
And so it's a way for them to truly connect. Now, are they connecting with each individual person? No. Especially if they're a really popular author. I mean, you're gonna be a fan of their page as opposed to their personal Facebook page, all of these various things, but they themselves can get out there, especially during a pandemic when, there aren't those things called book signings, and all of these various things, they can use Clubhouse, LinkedIn, whatever it is, to be talking about what they do. If it's, say, a Business Week columnist, okay, they might talk about the research that they did to
Yes,
develop
exactly.
that article. A fiction author is going to talk about their characters and how they found them, all those various things. So it really does allow us to connect on that personal level, even if it's still, several layers away.
Absolutely. And I think writers and authors and even thought leaders are coming around to, um, you know, 20 years ago, everything had to be perfect and
Mhm.
buttoned up and
Right.
packaged, whether it was video or whether it was a press release or
Right.
whatever.
And we spent thousands of dollars
Exactly.
on it.
Right. Exactly. And it's just very different now that
Mhm.
it's okay to be a little rough. It's
Mhm.
okay to show behind the scenes. It's
Mhm.
actually, it makes you more relatable
Right.
if it is behind the scenes.
Mhm.
Like you sort of get an idea into the
Mhm.
process. And so I think I love that we've had that shift. And
Mhm.
I think there's a balance. You don't have to show
Mhm.
everything,
Right.
right?
Oh, like
But
everybody. I mean, yeah, if they really don't need to know what I had for dinner unless it's something spectacular.
right. But I'll use Laura as an example. Like
Mhm.
on her Instagram page,
Mhm.
she will show how she miraculously packs for her family of 7
Mhm.
with like 3 suitcases. And it is gobsmackingly
Mhm.
impressive, right? So
Mhm.
perfect use of your
Right.
Instagram. You don't need to write about it. She doesn't want
Mhm.
to write like this is how exactly how I
Mhm.
pack. But
Mhm.
but I think, and in the same vein, there are days when life isn't perfect that I
Mhm.
think it's helpful for
Right.
people to do this. But
Mhm.
I think that behind the scenes is how we do
Mhm.
build that trust and
Mhm.
relatability. And for some people,
Mhm.
that's part of my job is to sort of get them okay with that. They're like,
Mhm.
really? Somebody wants to know,
Right.
and I was like, yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
100%. And or I think with books, the other thing
Mhm.
that, as I'm sure happens is a lot of stuff doesn't make it into the book.
Right.
That
Mhm.
doesn't mean it's still not great content that we
Mhm.
can't figure out a way to use on the
Mhm.
website or for
Mhm.
social media
Right.
or, as a download or
Mhm.
something like that,
Mhm.
to share with your audience.
Right.
So don't let the cutting room floor
Mhm.
stuff go away. It's really
Mhm.
important.
Right. Yeah. One of the things that I love knowing most about is kind of that backstory sometimes that authors, and obviously it's more fiction, but, that they're creating in their head about their characters, and then even, forward, Harry Potter is a great example of that with J.K. Rowling. I mean, she really does know that, where her characters came from in her mind. They're humans to her. Now, granted, it helps that there were all those movies and all, so so she can really put those, but then she knows, okay, this is how they died, this is
Right.
how their children, and so an author, when they put all of that together, that's what is so interesting about some of these books. And of course, an author, a lot of times they're an introvert. They are an author because they want to just sit at their computer and they don't want to see people. So I'm sure it's a challenge to get them to actually use these platforms.
You said it. And I think it's also like, I did put personal branding, in my bio, but I really don't use those phrases when I talk to writers and authors.
Because it scares them half to death.
Come around, but a lot of them still are hesitant to sort of, to them, the whole idea of personal branding is icky. It should be about their book. It should be about their content. It is harder. It is much harder when it becomes about them and their story. To me, that's the part I love. I'm much more interested in the author.
Right.
I love their book. I know it's their baby. I love the author, right? Like I'm there for the author and how are we going to tell your story? Because also, it's going to go beyond the book. My hope is if this is your first book or that we're building this platform and creating this community, not just for the book, but for hopefully, a lifetime sounds extreme, but for what comes after the book. Are they going on to, working mostly with nonfiction? Are they going to go on to give talks? I have another client and she does big, huge workshops and with high stress places like law firms and healthcare agencies. Like let's just not build for the short term and for the book. Let's build for what happens, after that. Let's let the book serve its place and do what it needs to do, in terms of launching or being part of your bigger strategy. But you hit the nail on the head. They are introverts. It is hard to talk about themselves, much more than a headshot feels a little, uncomfortable. I'm like, what about a, like photo session for your website and we can use in social? They're like, well,
and they're like, they've got their one picture that's on the back of their book that is 20 years old.
Right. Hopefully more than that. But I think I've also learned, I work best with people who know they need to do it and but they know they want a little help with it, right? Like they don't need to be sold on why should I be on LinkedIn or why should I, or they come and say, I have to do this social media thing. Help me figure out what I'm going to do, what we're going to say, or, and part of sometimes my job, which I love, is to give them permission, as you and I spoke about earlier, to say, you don't have to be everywhere. It doesn't make sense for you to be here. Let's go in for quality, not quantity. Let's go in for consistency. Let's go in for where your audience is. Stop trying to be on, Pinterest and Clubhouse, and House when you don't need to be. You really need to be going deep into, Instagram and LinkedIn, or in my world, Twitter plays, with the nonfiction writers and authors and thought leaders. Twitter's still,
Twitter's going to be a big one.
Twitter's a big one. I think for a lot of people, they're, especially post-election, it's not as relevant as it was. I'm a huge fan. I love it. And I love LinkedIn too. So, and again, for the same reason, it's less about having the perfect, beautiful pictures. It really is about the ideas and meeting and sharing of what's going on.
Right. Well, and LinkedIn truly is about that content, and providing those posts, whether you're sharing somebody else's content or sharing your own content. It's about sharing information, and I think that's what so many people forget about is, we all got on LinkedIn when it started, because we were told you needed to do that. And we cut and we pasted our resume and ta-da, we never go back. But it is such a great way for thought leaders to really be getting their views out there and, and do it in a professional way. It's fun to know a little bit of the backstory of folks, but LinkedIn truly is the professional place. And for anyone, it's just, it's the best place to be getting that content out there to people to establish yourself as that thought leader, as that expert. And I think that's what so many people forget about.
I totally agree. And I think, I'm happy to see, I think we have slightly shifted from as you said, put your resume up, set it and forget it. Right. And I think the other thing that's overwhelming, I'll take a step back for the people that aren't on LinkedIn. Let's say they don't consider themselves a thought leader, or they may have taken a gap in the marketplace, or they may, they may be perfectly happy in their corporate job, right? Like I'm thinking of all the excuses. Don't go on LinkedIn or don't touch their LinkedIn. And they would certainly probably even hate the words personal branding, but
because they don't see the need for it.
They don't see the need for it. And as you and I would say, like, it is free, easy,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm not gonna say completely no-brainer
Mm-hmm.
way for you to stake your claim in the internet, say who you are, what you do, what you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if it's a paid job
Mm-hmm.
or you've had it, right? Like just go take ownership in a simple way of that LinkedIn profile. I just it boggles my mind. I mean, I've had conversations with people on nonprofits who are these amazing fundraisers, and they don't have a LinkedIn profile.
Right.
And then, why
And
would
you're like,
I?
do you not get that
You're
your
calling the
donors
CEO,
are there?
like you're calling on the CEO. I was like, the research you could do. And I said, second of all, in this day and age, the minute anybody sees your name, they're gonna Google it. What's gonna come up?
Right.
Do you want them to see, like, I don't know, either where you donated or your last, real estate transaction, or would you like for your LinkedIn profile to come up
Right.
where it says who you are, what you do, what you believe in, and gives a sense of your network? So I get a little, I'm raising my voice.
Right.
I get
Because it's so
so,
important.
and to your point, I said the same thing. We've both of our boys are now in college, but my requirement was, you're not leaving for college until you've opened up your LinkedIn profile, because you have worked. There's no reason not to, and it's easier to add to it than it is to go back.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm a big fan, again, whether you're 18, whether you're 50, whether you're 75, like, you don't have to be on all the time, but it is such an incredibly useful tool at so many different stages that I just, soapbox not over yet, but
No, because that's what this program is for. Is we're all up on our soapboxes, especially
I'm a
about
passionate
LinkedIn.
fan about LinkedIn. And so I think the other misconception is that it's really complicated. And, okay, like all these platforms, they've become more bells and whistles and secret things you have to do, but it's really easy to have a very simple profile on LinkedIn that LinkedIn calls quote unquote all-star. As there is, you can become a LinkedIn all-star, but it doesn't,
not a ton of work.
It is not a ton of work. And so, I have a talk that's called 10 Steps to All-Star Status. And part of that is just to say to people, this, here are the things you literally need to do.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have to go back and find your job in 1982 and write any statistics. You don't have to do that. It's really easy. So I think that's, the getting in and getting started should be a no-brainer and shouldn't be overwhelming. So I think you and I believe in that.
Right. Well, and I believe that we always need to be keeping them current. Maybe we're not going in and posting every day, but the information about us should be current. You mentioned folks that, they've got this great corporate job, they're happy, yada, yada, yada. Whoa, then a pandemic hits, and all of a sudden they're like, well, I'm not sure I'm going to have this job, or maybe I don't want this job. I think there were a lot of people who went, well, now that I've been working from home, I found different passions, all these various things. And it's exactly what you said. Rather than having to go back and think, what did I do? And building connection, why not just keep it current? And then really kick it into high gear if you're needing it for something. But, I always find it interesting when I look at somebody's profile and I know they haven't touched it in years, and especially if they sent me a request to connect, I'm like, I'm pretty sure you haven't worked at that job for 5 years, or they don't do the basic things. I mean, how many people still don't have a picture? They don't have a good professional headline. They don't have that personalized billboard behind them. All of these various things, and I say that as being, the cobbler's kid who always is working on my own profile, or I at least have it on my list, right, to be working on my own profile. But, we need to be keeping those things current because you never know what might come along. I volunteer for the University of Colorado. That's my alma mater. That's, even though I'm here in Georgia, I still do a lot for it. And I was asked to serve on a very high committee at the university several weeks ago. And one of the things they said was, and we need a copy of your resume. And I went, I haven't done a resume in probably 20 years, but I do have a LinkedIn profile. And you can download it, you can save it as a PDF, and it was absolutely perfect for what they needed, because they didn't really mean resume as in you're applying for a job resume. they actually wanted what you would put in a good LinkedIn profile. And so that was, I sent that and they said, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And so that's yet another benefit, is you never know when there's an opportunity that could come up where being active and having a great LinkedIn profile is going to benefit you.
100%. And I like how you were talking about just sort of continuing to update it. And I try and talk about it as like, here are the first few things you need to do to get the profile set and ready and updated. And then here, as you just said, here are the things you need to do to stay active, to stay engaged, right? And those are, and it doesn't mean you ignore your profile, but to your point, if things aren't changing drastically, then here are these other things that you need to do. And then the other piece of it, sounds sneaky, but just for two things. One, research, right? Like information you can find out either about companies or people or networks or just it's such an amazing research tool.
It's a huge database. I mean, that's what people forget, is that's basically what LinkedIn is. It's a big database.
It's 100%. And I think the other piece, especially in the pandemic, I was on a Zoom call yesterday and we were actually encouraged, and it was nice because I like the way the moderator gave permission, because we're not mingling before this talk, because we're not going to mingle afterwards, because we're not trading business cards. And because the actual talk was about connecting, she said, please go take a look at the people in this room, post in the chat, who you are and what you do, put your LinkedIn profile. And again, I think to me, that's the other perk. I would say, this sounds weird, but I would say that my community or network in a good way versus network in a bad way has grown just as much in this past year. And LinkedIn's going to get credit for it, right? Because you're in the Zoom meeting, you find somebody's information, unless they tell you to find them somewhere else. That to me is the next kind of third party way, right? You're not going to go into their website and end up in their info box. You really, and it's because of the messaging tool, you quickly say, and always send a message no matter what.
Yes. Right? Just saw you on such and such Zoom.
Right. Just saw you, really enjoyed it. Excited to connect. And if they don't even connect, at least you've sent them that message of, it was nice to meet you. Right. Like it's just been such a great tool post pandemic. And I think, though I've heard those that don't like social media who are on LinkedIn, who say it's feeling more like Facebook, I still feel like, it's not full of so much clutter and clobber to get through that you can't find the people you're looking for or find the information you're looking for or figure out how to connect.
Right. And every once in a while, LinkedIn does make a change where I think, oh, they're trying to be more like Facebook. But you're right, especially with the content that people are posting. I can look at my Facebook feed and half of the things I get annoyed at, half of them I don't read, and there I just got 100%. But I'm not really looking at most of what's on Facebook. On LinkedIn, now it might not be something that I read, but I know it's for the most part very business related.
Right.
But I was, it's interesting. My first guest of this series, we were talking about the fact that you can still put fun posts. He's a scientist, and so he posts things that 99% of the time, I don't even know what they are by the title, let alone, I'm not, but then he also posts some fun things. Now he said, maybe 1 in 4, maybe not even that much, but it's still an appropriate business fun thing. He's not talking about what he did over the weekend or things like that. He's just posting something fun. And to me, that helps us in building those relationships with people. Right. I might read that you some fun post from you and I think, wow, I really do need to get to know Nancy better, and then I figure, oh yeah, there's this business side of her, but there's that personal thing. And the platforms are different, on Facebook, we're going to be much more personal, much more fun. Actually, on most of the other platforms, that LinkedIn is very specifically geared towards being professional. But yeah, we can still have fun with it. That's the thing is I think so many people always think, well, I have to be just button down collar and blah, blah. And that's why they don't like LinkedIn, but we can put fun personality into it.
100%. And I think, again, I think the growth of videos, right? Like the sort of videos, bringing videos forward. Again, part of it's just, as opposed to a picture of you or a picture of me or a picture of, our business, to get that video piece, to sort of hear your voice and see your inflections. And especially, again, if you're going to work with me or with you or you're somebody else, you're going to read somebody's book, right? You would kind of love to get a little more of that behind the scenes story. So I think the video part, for the most part, has actually also been really helpful to bring in, whether you would call it fun or engagement. You know what I mean? I think it's just sort of brought a slightly, again, another more human level to it. And I think the other human part that I like is the congratulating part. Congratulations to my friend on a promotion, or congratulations.
And LinkedIn tells you these things, folks. You don't have to research it.
We're launching this book. I'm not so sure about the birthdays, but
yeah, I skip those. Those I'm like,
I think, again, the and the being able to tag people and celebrate people and share them with your network or vice versa. They've made it really easy, and I think I think everybody else who's playing the LinkedIn world, at least in the posting, have been pretty good about not being too spammy.
Right.
I think, I don't know about your inbox. I think spam fill up is in the inbox. I think I got away lucky for a little while, but I was hearing it happening to others, but mine is now too. I think it is what it is, but at least it says sponsored when it comes in. So you can screen through it, as need be. But for the most part, I still feel like it's a wholly, relatively, pretty authentic place, without too much of the spam and the bots. And I know they're there. I don't mean to be naive, but I think people treat it legitimately, and vice versa. At least the world I'm traveling in there.
Right. Yeah. I get those spammy, and it's funny because it's typically, you get a nice, regular, normal request to connect. And so then, I might connect with them, but then that's immediately wham, you get the spam. I had one the other day and I could tell, I mean, it truly was, because it was almost instantaneous and it was a long message. So there's no way that somebody, retyped it. It was a spam response, and it was, did I know how important social media was and they were going to help me with it? And I thought, okay, let's just see where this can go from here. And so I responded and I said, well, that's nice. However, maybe you should go back and read my profile. Got back a totally spammy response, and so again, clearly they weren't. And
the bot was in motion.
Yes, the bot, it went, oh, she responded, we typed this. Oh, she responded. And let's be honest, I mean, there's, and we've actually interviewed some folks for this program who have very, very intelligent spam bots. They know how to respond. Yeah. And and obviously there are times where it refers them to the person, it's like, wait a minute. But yeah, it's just, don't be spammy on this, whether you're a bot or not. The analogy I often hear the most is, would you date or would you marry somebody after your first drink? No. Hopefully not. I mean, there are those that do, but but yeah, you want to get to know them. And the same thing happens on LinkedIn. I'm perfectly fine with somebody sending me a note as a follow-up and saying, hey, I'd love to get to know more about you. And if I can tell that it was truly authentic and not a spam bot and all of those things, then often I will say, I'm more than happy to chat with you. Here's a link to my online calendar. Because that is truly the test of the bot, because a bot can't go schedule. So if it's a person, then they'll schedule the meeting. If it's a bot, I usually don't even get a response because it doesn't know what to do. So, and one of the things I've really started doing is trying to set up several meetings a week. Now, half hour at the most, of LinkedIn connections. I'm going in, I'm either, finding somebody new, connecting with somebody new, or maybe it's somebody that I just haven't had the opportunity, especially in the last year, to be talking with. And I've been having some great conversations with people.
I love that. It's interesting. And I, again, for somebody who professes to love the social media, I'm guarded with my connections, and I'm
Right.
losing. I will say I've loosened up a little bit, and because when I would give my LinkedIn talk, I would say, look, everybody has to decide what their philosophy
Right.
is. That's always one
Yeah.
of the questions you get. Do I connect with everybody? You know, do I have to know them?
Mhm.
You know, and so my advice is to be like, and I think it still is if somebody called you and says, tell me about this person you're connected to, what would you be able to
Right.
say? Right. And so I kind of kept that very close, that I wanted to be able to tell you something about that person, even if it was, I've never met them, but they're friends of or related to, or I know
Right.
them in the context of this group. That's what I know. Right. And so as our networks are getting bigger, if somebody reaches out to me without a note, don't ever do that.
I know, but it's still, I get a note maybe one of every 10 times.
Yeah. And so if they haven't put a note, and or they don't have that, I can't see sort of who we have in common for context. I won't necessarily accept. I will say, thanks for trying to connect. Can you tell me more about why you're interested in connecting? Sometimes that just scares them away. Right. Like I don't,
because they were just going through and
yeah. And so if they can't come back to me the legitimate, I'm like, you're going to stay over there in ignore land for a little while, because I don't, you know, again, it's not that I'm not that special, but I'm still protective. I'm not the,
we don't take everybody's business card at a networking event.
So I think, you know, I think I've gotten a little more open. And again, what are you looking, you know, what's your, are you about to launch a business or a product? You may want to have all the connections in the world.
Right.
Like that's completely different. It's been interesting to watch. We talked about the college kids. It's been interesting to watch them. You know, one of my sons took it very serious. Like he was very, you know, as he started out, he was very close about his connections, and now he's looking for a job. He's like, oh, I understand why I need to have connections.
Right.
The younger one, you know, told all his friends, go hit up with my mom on LinkedIn. She'll be friends with you. And I was like, that's fine, but they're going to have to like tell me what they're looking for and why they want to be
not just send me the blank request to connect.
So it's been fun seeing, you know, how it is used. And to your point, I'm still amazed at people who aren't on there or who have huge followings who, you know, don't have the picture. And I get at some point people get to a level where they don't need a LinkedIn profile, right? But I just, to me, it's like just filling out the basics seems like a no-brainer.
Right. You know, and it really is pretty simple to do some of the basics. You know, even if you really are just having the picture, you know, a pretty good headline, a little bit about you, you know, those various things, because that, as you said, you know, that's how we're doing our research. And especially, I mean, you know, we've been in this pandemic a year, you know, I don't know what the heck the future holds. All these people that say, oh, I can't wait for it to get back to normal. It ain't going back to normal, people. You know, we are not going to be doing business like we did in 2019. Good ways and bad ways. The good ways are we're doing much more online. I mean, you know, that is definitely the thing. And so, you know, because we're online, we're connecting with people and really doing research about them, right? We're not going to a networking event and, you know, chatting with 20 people in the room. We might be on that Zoom that you were talking about. And it's funny. One of the things that I do, I've got two big monitors. So I've got the Zoom on one, and then on the other, I have LinkedIn. And as we're going through, I'm just putting them in and finding them. And other people are doing that too, because I'm getting requests to connect from people on that Zoom thing. You know, and now obviously folks, you know, pay attention to what you're doing on the Zoom. I mean, you know, if it's, excuse me, a great speaker, don't be, you know, cluttering up the chat with while the person is speaking and things. So only post when they say, hey, it's okay to post your connection information, you know, all of those various things. But yeah, I mean, I've often, you know, I'll be hearing a speaker and I'll be sending them a request to connect on LinkedIn saying, oh my gosh, I'm listening to you right now. And I love that you say, you know, always have something there that you're, you know, when in your request to connect, you know, we have the attention span of a gnat. And, you know, I like to think that I'm really memorable. but 10 minutes from now, somebody might not remember me. So I remind them, hey, you know, we're doing an interview on the Business Power Hour. Saw you on a Zoom on C-Suite Network. You know, all of those things, because again, that comes back to giving us a jumping off point for conversation, right? You know, if anything, they're like, oh my gosh, I love that speaker too. And then you kind of go from there, as opposed to just the bing. You know, most of the bings, I don't, you know, unless we've got a whole bunch of mutual connections, nah, I don't connect.
No. And you know, as you're talking, it's also making me realize like a lot of the Zooms and the things I've been on are with people similar to you, Deb, like-minded people who are interested in what is the future? How are we going to stay connected? What is the new normal? So I hate to say it, it's a little meta, but it's people who are interested in connecting, talks about connecting, and there we are on the side, you know. So I know I'm going to honor that not everybody thinks about that like you and I do. But I think even if they took a percentage away of what we're talking about in terms of these tactics of connecting and staying in touch, or just sort of saying that this does happen. It's not weird, you know, like people do it. That I think it also gives you that kind of launching pad, and or to your point, if you started in the message, I like using the message as a research tool. Like, when did Deb and I start speaking, right? Or
oh my gosh, I'm always going back to message and going, how in the heck did I meet this person?
Right? Like, I mean, just use it again. Use your own message chat box as a research tool is huge. Really secret spot. So we were going to talk about Deb, like we were about using videos, like we're doing videos
because LinkedIn does have its own platform now, which I don't have yet. You know, so LinkedIn video, LinkedIn Live, and you know, it's a great tool for people who have it, and they're just rolling it out slowly.
They are rolling out slowly, but you can, I mean, and I'm sorry, I should know this. Are you putting up little snippets?
I'm not putting up, I'm not actually putting up video. I take that back. I do, but only like every other week. Okay. And so, you know, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those, you use it and LinkedIn goes, ooh, you like video, therefore.
Exactly. So like I was going to say, and you may have covered this in your other audiences, I mean, in your other chats, but I think the things that I have learned, it has to be less than 10 minutes. This is not live. This is before, you know, live came around. They cap you at 10 minutes. So, so I just was taking kind of snippets of longer interviews and putting them up there just to sort of start testing the water. And I think one of the things, so I think to your point, that said to LinkedIn, oh, she likes video. And I had applied for the live. Evidently I was rejected. I applied again. So keep trying. Keep trying. But now I haven't used it yet because I kind of want to not just show up and throw spaghetti at people. So figuring that out. And I think the other thing I learned about just even uploading the recorded video was, I personally had this intro and, you know, everything else. And the feedback was just launch into whatever it is you're going to talk about or whoever you're talking to. Don't deal with the intro because that's just, you're going to lose those eyeballs as somebody's, you know,
it's one thing to have an intro on, say, a podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, on LinkedIn, they don't want fluff. They just want to hear what you're going to be talking about.
We're talking about this. This is what you're going to learn. And I think the other thing we've learned with the posting, and if you've covered this, but I think the other thing, one of the conversations we have about like what works on LinkedIn is long post or short post, right? And I think their algorithms change, but I have to say, I'm seeing a lot of success with clients who are going for the longer form posts. And they've actually seen a decline in the posting, the posting on LinkedIn over in the publishing section. They're doing it to keep it active, but a lot of people I know have just sort of said, forget it. I'm just going to go do long form posts. It doesn't seem to be slowing them down. It gives somebody something to read. I feel like it almost gives somebody a pause to be like, oh, this writer typically writes long form and is entertaining or educating. I'm just going to go in here. So those are the other things I think that have been a little bit of surprise are these longer form posts. And as slow as our attention span is, I do find personally, I'll stop and read one if I've been predisposed to know that person consistently delivers good long form
Yeah.
posts.
And I tell people, no matter what you're posting is to generate conversation. And so the analogy I use the most is LinkedIn. You should be doing what you're doing, if you could, with your in-person networking. If you walk up to somebody and say, hey, oh my gosh, Nancy, I just read the greatest article. Here's what it talked about. And what do you think about that? I mean, that's the thing. And the really funny thing is people seem to need permission. They don't comment, even though that box is always there, unless you say, what do you think? Tell me your thoughts, all those various things. And that's one of the things that I have found is, the second you ask a question, or maybe, it's not that they're giving permission. It's like, oh, well, she's expecting me to respond, so maybe I better respond.
Right.
And then if then of course if the responsibility falls back on you, if somebody commented on your post, go in and, reply, and so that's where it does start taking more time.
Right.
So the nice thing is, it's not like the other social media platforms where you're posting multiple times a day, personal or professional. LinkedIn, you can get by with posting less frequently, as long as you're still following up. Because just like in real life, if you made a great comment to me and I just walked off, you're not going to comment again. That's the thing for people to remember is if somebody takes the time to respond, then you need to respond back, even if it's just, hey, Nancy, thanks for your comment.
Yeah. 100%. The two things that are coming up while you're talking about that, one, sometimes I have clients who actually, again, let's say they're either new to social media or the idea of sharing stuff in a social media platform. It's just not, it doesn't come naturally to them. Right. So one of the things we talk about is, let's say you're sharing that Forbes article or that Inc. article or whatever it is that you just read. Why was it interesting to you? Yes. Why do you want to share it? What's your point of view? You may actually totally disagree with it.
And that's great.
Put your point of view on it again, so somebody understands where you're coming from. Do you agree with this? Are you a friend of the author, right? Like, what is your point of view that makes this worth sharing? Tell me the person who's going to read it. And I love your point about then asking the question, but I think, again, make it worth that post as opposed to feeling like you're filling your LinkedIn stream.
Right.
And the other piece about the commenting and the going back again, I love seeing, I've just watched recently with clients and friends book launches, networking that goes on just literally in the comment section. Suddenly, their 6 friends or people in their industry, are all congratulating them. And then we're like, great job, Paul. Suddenly there's a whole community that just gets built in the comments of these LinkedIn posts, which again, in the day of not meeting people in real life, serves its purpose.
Yeah. I had that happen just yesterday where, actually somebody, I think they shared one of my podcasts and they said, hey, this is great information. So I went in and thanked them. And, because they tagged me, plus I saw in the notifications that they had shared it. And so I went in, I thanked them for sharing it. And then somebody else who was connected with them responded and said, oh my gosh, what a small world. I know Deb too. We just haven't had a chance to get together. And so I responded and I said, okay, we need to fix that. And so, you never know. It's, my friend Dave Avron wrote the book. It's not who you know, it's who knows. Yeah. Now I got the title all messed up. Sorry, Dave. But it's not about who we're connected with. It's about who our connections are connected with.
Exactly.
And so, that really is it. It's great that you, Nancy, can help me, but how, who are you connected to who might be able to help me or be a great contact or be a great friend or whatever it is. It's all about building out and continuing to build that. And that is scary for people because they think, oh, what if there's thousands of people? Well, we're not saying you have to talk to those 1,000 people every single day.
Right. Exactly. And I think also, again, we've talked about it, but I think that there are putting the human parts into LinkedIn so that it doesn't feel so transactional. so that it does feel like authentic kind of either community building or relationship building. And I don't take those terms lightly, and I know you don't either, Deb, but I think there are still some people who, just violently opposed to the, this idea of networking. And I understand that, but I think we have opportunities in LinkedIn to make it a warmer, softer, gentler, kinder place, and still be building wonderful communities and making connections for, impact and businesses and growth, right? Without it kind of being, I made 500 connections today, right? Like that doesn't have to be the focus or the point.
Right. And of course, the cool thing about LinkedIn is we can be building our network truly worldwide. The stats show us that the majority of people on LinkedIn are not in the United States. So depending on what it is that you do, it might be great that you're developing that international group of connections. And even you mentioned before, people are always saying, who should I connect with? And I've had people have said, well, I only want to connect with people 30 miles away from me. Oh, okay, that's great. I mean, that's their thought process. But you never know when that person in Hoboken might be a person who knows somebody who could use my service, or even somebody farther away. I mean, I interviewed somebody for the podcast last month. He's in Saigon. Now that was a first. I had never interviewed somebody in Saigon. But yeah, I mean, you never know where those great connections are going to come in. So that's why I say, limit your LinkedIn, who you request to connect, not just on proximity. Even if you are a brick and mortar place, look at it more as in, okay, this person does not have a complete profile. I got a picture the other day on somebody, and it was so funny. I had to share it on a private Facebook group that we have where we were mocking it. But it, the comment that every person made about it was, dude, because it was a guy with long hair. He had yellow shades on. I mean, all this stuff. And it was like, there's no way I'm connecting with you. I mean, I could just, but so that comes back to have a professional picture, all of those things, but look at the profile and decide if there's somebody you want to connect with, as opposed to, I'm sorry, they don't live near me.
Yeah. No, I think that's my sister, again, who owns a bookstore, like she's in St. Louis, but she's friends with the bookstore owners all over the country because they have similar problems and challenges, and are all in each other's space. So I totally agree. And I think also in working with the clients I work with, they're not, for the most part, again, bound by local. They're so great. And I would even say, you've brought up a great point, that in the pandemic, I have become more inclusive or thoughtful about other time zones than I was when we were in our own world, going to our own meetings in our own time zone, right? Like I'm now, we were talking about Clubhouse. Like I'm cognizant. I've had people say to me, it'd be easier if you had this meeting in this time frame because I'm on the West Coast, or being thoughtful about what's going on in England for those times. And that was not at the forefront of my mind as much pre-pandemic as it is now. And I think going forward, when you're thinking about, I mean, I know we like to be East Coast centric, but I hope, and as I'm learning to be more inclusive about a lot of things, that's another one I think that's really important, is to think that way.
Right. And obviously with LinkedIn, if you're just messaging, time doesn't really matter. But yeah, then, you are kind of thinking about, okay, well, this person is 4 hours away, 6 hours away, whatever, so if we connect, we just have to take, that into thought if we go to actually connect online. And so, it's Saigon. I mean, Saigon was a weird one. That time zone just really threw us. I mean, I ended up being early morning. He ended up being late at night, and it worked. I mean, but I wouldn't do that real often. But yeah, I mean, it's something. And, I think we're discovering also that, obviously people are now working from wherever, and I think a lot of offices are going to stay virtual or may go back into, some form of hybrid. But I think many offices, I won't say most, but I think many offices aren't going to have their people come back, or it will be in such a weird way. And so we're going to be working at weird times, and then if you've got, kids at home that you're having a homeschool, that really, you might not be doing your work until 11 o'clock at night. And so, yeah, time zones are getting kind of wonky with,
Yeah,
what we're even doing.
and I think also just as you said, talking about in person, sorry,
Mhm.
not necessarily in person, but live things,
Mhm,
right? Whether
mhm,
it's a Zoom event or it's,
mhm,
back to doing your LinkedIn
mhm,
Live. Okay, I now have to think like, not only when are people on
mhm.
LinkedIn, or is it most likely to be seen, but who am I focusing on seeing
Right.
it again? Is
Mhm,
it going to be mostly East Coast before
mhm.
work, or do I want to do the lunch hour that captures West Coast morning? Like
Right.
there's a lot more that goes into
Yeah.
that.
And the key is to alternate. You do something that's going to hit West Coasters at lunch, and then the next time you do it where it hits East Coasters at lunch, or
Right.
whatever. And or yeah, I mean, we're all flexible. We can deal with that. But that also comes to into our personal realm. I don't typically do events in the evening, online or in person. I just don't. I mean, and so I figure, well, I'm probably not the only one like that. So maybe I should do things during the day. And weekends. I mean, people tend to forget that we can do business on weekends. My friend Brian Basilico, who's been a guest on this program several times, he has started doing a LinkedIn Live Saturdays at 11 Eastern time. And it's, and yeah, see, my eyebrows went up too. And I said, Saturday? And he's getting a huge following. Now, it's 11 for me on a Saturday morning. So I typically have other things I'm going to be
Yeah.
doing. But he said, that, and now he's in Chicago, in the Chicago area. So that's 10 for him. And so but yeah, I mean, he did his research, and he said, he discovered there are a lot of people on LinkedIn on Saturday mornings.
Wow. Good. That is really helpful.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hmm.
my longer form or longer narrative
Hmm.
clients, we're definitely a fan of the Saturday morning
Hmm.
weekly
Yep.
email,
Hmm.
because they
Hmm.
are not sending the one paragraph. They're
Hmm.
sending the exclusive
Right.
content,
Hmm. Hmm.
thoughtful piece that needs you to be able to
Hmm.
read it. So
Right.
I'm a fan of the newsletter.
Hmm.
I'm going to say personally, when people tell me they've scheduled something at 5 o'clock on a Sunday, I'm no,
Hmm.
sorry.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I think I've
Hmm.
even tweeted about it. I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't schedule worky
Hmm.
things for me on a Sunday.
Hmm. Right.
Kind of one thing,
Mhm.
but I don't showing up at 5, 6, or 7 on a Sunday. Or
Aside from anything else, that
Saturdays,
means I've got to do my hair. I've got to.
Saturdays can be an optional one if the time allows.
Mhm.
I'm with that, but the Sunday one, I kind of
Mhm.
like. I need the break before we
Mhm.
go into Monday.
Right. Yeah. But it might be a good time to do a post, say at 8 p.m.,
Totally.
because people are sitting down, and, they're just sitting with their phone as they're watching TV. And so that might be a perfect time to do a post.
Yeah. And to your point, research,
Mhm.
test, go
Yeah.
go look at
And
the data
mhm.
points. Like go
Mhm.
see what worked. Like that. If nothing else, that's your takeaway. Like
Right. Yeah.
do this, but
Mhm.
go back and say, did it work? Did it
Mhm.
not work? Why did it
Right.
work?
Mhm.
Was it a matter of timing? Was
Mhm.
it a matter of tagging? Was it a matter of
Mhm.
how you did it?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's I think
Right.
the other thing is that I do like to bring back to clients is, what did you learn?
Mhm.
Like let's not just
Right.
not do it, say nothing happened or
Mhm.
it didn't work. Well, let's dive
Why
in.
didn't it work? Mhm.
Why didn't it? Or why did it? And
Mhm.
how do we do
Mhm.
more of that? Right. And I
Right.
think that's the other
Mhm.
part.
And
With
and obviously be flexible. I mean, what works this month might not work next month.
right.
I mean, that's and a big part of that. I mean, we can blame it on the pandemic, but no, I mean, it's always been that way. And part of it's been because platforms change. I mean, all these various things. And so that's I mean, but that's the cool thing about social. I mean, it's not like it's a magazine that we have published or a direct mail piece or even your website. With social, we can be much more flexible, and we can change or add. I mean, it's like, okay, well, I've always done this at 8 p.m. Okay, well, I'm
Right.
going to still continue doing 8 p.m., but let's do a 7 a.m. and just see what works.
Right.
We used to call that A/B testing. Still do call it A/B testing.
Now we just call it testing.
Yeah.
Now we just
But
sort of
yeah, I
say,
mean, it's the thing. And I always have clients that say, well, when is the best time to post? I tell them, I mean,
right. I mean,
that's a
again,
moving target.
what are you trying to,
Mhm.
what is your
Right.
goal?
Mhm.
Who's your audience? What are
Yeah.
you trying to do? That's
Yeah.
a whole another
Right.
kettle of fish, but there
Well,
is no,
and people have to remember on LinkedIn, you have an audience too. I mean, we all think about, okay, especially if we've got, say, a Facebook business page, who are our followers, and those things. But on LinkedIn, I mean, you have hopefully developed a certain audience there too, and so, okay, these are people who really are going to be available on a Saturday morning or, Monday afternoon, whatever it is. I mean, think about who you're posting for.
100%. No, and again, that's sometimes a foreign concept for people to think about building their own communities and audiences. But I love the way you've framed it that way in terms of, or I'd say, when do you want to chat with your peeps? Sorry, you know what I mean? Like, they haven't heard from you in a while. They need to hear from you, and LinkedIn needs to hear from you to bring.
Because it does have those algorithms too. I mean, it's not just, oh, Nancy hasn't posted in 6 months. Let's put her stuff first and foremost. It's like, no, Nancy has to post again quite a bit before it goes, oh yeah, she's, and it's funny. I saw a post on Facebook today from somebody who had not posted in a year. And I'm actually surprised I saw it. It was kind of
LinkedIn tell you this is the first time this person's posted?
No, I was thinking it was like, I don't think I've seen anything from them for a while. So I went and looked, and they hadn't done anything in a year. Normally, LinkedIn likes people, and there's a variety of reasons that, and of course we're out of time, so we can't talk about it, but there are a variety of reasons why you want to be more active. Because, in a nutshell, LinkedIn likes to promote the people who are active.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
100%. Exactly. And so I think that's the other reason I say to people, stay consistent. You cannot do it on your own. Get help. There are people that can help you do it.
Well, oh my gosh, what a great segue. So tell us how they can connect with you, because you do provide those services. So first tell us what you do, and then tell us how they find you.
The big picture is, as we've talked about literally this whole hour, Deb, is I really enjoy helping people get seen, found, and heard, and doing that using social media, email, and their marketing, and helping them figure out the best authentic strategy for them, to do this and grow this. So whether it's figuring out the strategy or helping, actually craft the plan, or digging in the weeds and holding the hands of getting it done. But I go back to what's manageable and authentic, so that it works for them, that we're not, here's what you have to do, and it's not in alignment with what you want to be or who you are. It's not going to work, as you know. So figuring that out. And again, LinkedIn, find me on LinkedIn. I am Nancy Sheed of Sheed Communications. So I am literally /Nancy Sheed, SHEED. I have a website that is nancysheed.com. And I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and Clubhouse, if you're on Clubhouse. So
that's how we met.
Exactly.
My one and only time being on Clubhouse. So,
and look, voila. Thank you. This is such a treat. And also a quick plug. I do have I mentioned it, but I am happy to send, I have the 10 steps to all-star status for LinkedIn. So if anybody's listening, it's a video I'm happy to send. They can, listen to it, hit pause, work on their profile.
Perfect.
And I've gotten a lot of great feedback that that's a very useful tool.
I love it. Well, again, it's nancysheed.com. Easy peasy, easy peasy. So Nancy, what final thoughts would you like to leave us with?
I think, Deb, with regard to LinkedIn, it's a no-brainer. It's free. It's pretty easy. If it's not, call Deb or call me. As we come out of the pandemic, I really think we've gotten used to using the internet to do a lot of the background research, and even before the pandemic. So I think just getting that profile set up in a way that feels authentic and natural, but professional, right? And I use the word optimized. There's just no reason not to. It costs nothing, and it has so much value that it can bring you as we're moving forward in this new world.
Perfect. I love it. I love it. Well, I've been having an absolutely delightful conversation with Nancy Sheed. I'm Deb Creer, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.